Okay, we're moving on to item number 4. Elect a new Traffic and Mobility Commission Chair and Vice Chair. And we're gonna let Doug walk us through the process.
Yes, thank you, Chair Gogan. First, I'd like to thank Chair Gogan for an outstanding job the past year plus as chair, and also to former Chair Hunter. We've been in good hands at the commission, and it's time now to look at the next year. And so there was some question about timing about this, so I put down in the staff report the end of the term, the current terms, and I talked to legal counsel, and we are not constrained to choose a chair that if the term expires in the middle. But if they're termed out, let's say, and this was your second term and you couldn't be reappointed, that would be a situation. But in this case, you can vote for a chair and a vice chair regardless of the end of their term, as long as they're not going to term out. So without recommendation from legal counsel was to stay the course of recommending a new chair and a vice chair at this meeting for the next 12 months.
And traditionally, it's been?
Well, traditionally, you can, we've had in the past, a chair go a second term. Traditionally, the vice chair takes over as the chair, and then you vote a new chair in. But those are just traditions, and you're not obligated to do any of those. So typically, my experience has seen that there's a nomination process, and then the person nominated would determine if they are willing to take on that, and then you vote. So it's as simple as that, and you go chair and then vice chair.
But let me clarify, you said if they're not going to term out, but two people here are going to term out.
No, it means you're not
They
able
can get reappointed.
They can get reappointed.
Right, now when your term is over, you cannot be reappointed because you've been, you've reached your maximum term.
So there's only 2 terms now?
Yes,
Because it didn't used to be.
yeah, that's new.
Okay.
So this would be your first, so there shouldn't be a.
But what happens in July if they don't get reappointed?
Then we will re-vote for a new chair at that point.
And who gets to appoint or reappointing?
As I said, traditionally,
Yeah.
someone nominates somebody, and you can do the current chair.
You mean in July when you guys are up?
No, I mean right now. My opinion, well, first, my recommendation was, since we've been having so many changes, was to wait until July and then to see who's gonna be here, and then, because we've been having between the staff. But it seems that staff doesn't recommend that. So my recommendation, or I appoint Vice Chair Johnson, if I get to do that, one of the appointments, because this is the traditional way that it's been. I've been a vice chair, and that's how you get the experience to actually run some meetings when the chair is not here. And then in July, if she's not here, then I'm not here, both not here, whoever knows, we can vote for somebody else. That is my recommendation. But I let the board make different.
But you want it, right?
At least for the next 3 months.
Next 3 months.
Well,
4 or 5.
5 months, but that's okay. But do you want it? That's the question. Because some people don't.
Well, I don't mind
If you want.
chairing this.
Okay.
I'm not really crazy about going to city council and representing. I think Steve does a much better.
You can appoint somebody. to-
Ah.
He has lots of experience.
He does.
Too much. Yeah, we can always appoint somebody different to go to council.
Right.
Okay.
So,
Did you have a recommendation for vice chair also at the same time?
I believe vice chair should be whoever is in, who, was it Commissioner Pensier that came next after order of seniority on the board? Because pretty much that's how we've been. If you would like
I
to be
would
vice
pass on
chair.
that. I'd
Okay.
assume
Commissioner
just sit on
Fowler?
the commission.
For vice chair,
Yes.
You know, I'm not crazy about the idea, but I would do it. And I thought you would do it, so.
There's a little.
No, I'll tell you the truth, I was kind of thinking maybe next year. But I still have a year or 2 years or something like that, so
Okay.
If I
maybe we
could,
should do blood, I think that would be fine.
I do want to point out that the effort may seem effortless with Chair Gokin and Hunter, but it is a bit of training. So we go through some training, you have to learn the Brown Act. You know, there's quite a bit that goes on to it, so I hope you don't feel that this is just a simple thing, and I think Vice Chair Johnson could tell you that taking over the meeting at a moment's notice, which you did admirably the last couple times, it does take a lot of work. So do take that into consideration. If you do go forward, we're going to support you. The staff liaison is there to train you, so feel comfortable in that, but there is some extra effort involved.
Well, I do like Mona's approach of just keeping it static right now until July, when our terms are up, and deciding whether we're gonna go on or have new people. To me, that's the simplest. Since we have so many people that wanna jump up.
Hi.
Hi.
If I may, Tom Frank, Transportation Director, you can actually make that motion to keep yourself as the chair and keep the vice chair the same, and then you're
Until
good.
July.
Yeah, until July, and then you can reassess at that time.
Okay.
Well, but I'll make a motion that we let Johnny be the chair and Commissioner Perez be the vice chair.
Okay.
So that's a motion.
So we have two motions. Okay, do I get a second for,
So did you finish your motion?
I haven't got a chance because you jumped in front of me.
Okay, so finish your motion, then I'll make a motion.
Okay, so how is that gonna work with two motions on the?
Well, the first motion has to be either voted on or tabled.
Okay, so,
Or
okay.
seconded, if it's seconded,
Okay.
it needs to be voted on or tabled.
Right, okay, so then I'll make a motion to keep everything stable until July, and then we'll see who's here and who's not, and who's ready to take over.
I'll second that.
Okay? Ready to vote? Oh, hold on.
You
Sorry.
got comments on that?
This is why I like these meetings, they're entertaining.
Sorry, since legal isn't here, we had heard your motion, and you were the first one to make a motion, but it
When was
wasn't.
I thought she started one already.
She started one and then.
Yeah, she was first.
Yeah, so she never got a chance
To
to
finish.
have hers voted on or finalized, so we're gonna, I guess you have to table yours if you want to be very formal. You're gonna retract yours, right?
If she had started hers, and her only motion was to have Commissioner Johnson be the chair. There wasn't any extended portion to that motion. So I put a complete motion together, so. to
Right,
your point-
that was my point, was you were starting the discussion, but there wasn't an official, I move, or I'm making a
Right,
motion
right.
of blank.
Because
So that was why I was
right.
saying that the first one
Right.
that I heard
So the
along those
first one
lines
was actually
was
mine.
yours.
Okay.
So then the question is, I also didn't hear a second, but then they went to the discussion. So I think, as a disinterested third party listening, I think from a motion perspective, then that needs to carry out with, is there a second? If not, then it falls and it just
I'd
doesn't
second,
happen.
Chuck's motion, yeah.
Okay.
How about if we start this as a, thank you.
Need to start over.
Why don't you make your motion then?
I did.
Repeat your motion.
I
You
make a
can repeat your
motion
motion so that we're clear.
that Vice Chairman Johnson move into the chairmanship position, and that Commissioner Perez
Foul.
become the vice chairman.
I thought it was foul.
Perez or Fowler, you,
Effective what? Perez.
okay.
Fowler and Pete don't really want it, so.
Okay, I just want to be
So
sure it was clear.
that was the purpose of that, and that keeps them comfortable, and so that was my motion, and we have a second, so.
I first, just for decorum, see if that is agreeable to Commissioner Perez. I don't know if he accepted that offer.
I was going to request, I'm honored to be nominated for co-chair, but I think right now with my responsibilities for the commission for traffic and mobility, and then also my working with the committee for the housing and the housing element, I will decline on that.
And that's totally fine. You do,
Okay, so
you
let's
do a
just
motion,
vote
a
on
second,
this
and there's
motion.
discussion, and so based on
Do
that
we vote or
discussion.
do we move?
Let's go formal. Now that you know that there's not an interest in it, why don't you just vote and clear that one out?
Okay, so let's just vote
Or
on
I
that
can take my
motion.
motion off the table.
You can't.
Okay, I'll take my motion off the table.
But, look, if nobody's gonna do it, I would do it and be co-chair with.
Vice
John.
chair.
Okay.
Yeah, vice chair, I'm sorry. I would do
We can still vote.
Is that a motion?
There's, well, hold on, let the chair, let's let the chair run this.
Okay.
To get me off the hook here.
So the motion was made by Commissioner Hunter to have Vice Chair Johnson be the chair and Commissioner Perez be the Vice Chair. We're gonna vote on that. Or
That was tabled.
I've already retracted my
if
motion.
you retract your motion, then
Now
that's
it's back to
fine.
the chair.
Then
Now
I
it's
will
back to
make
you.
a motion that we keep everything as it is until July. And then from then on, by then, everybody should figure out what they wanna do, if they wanna be chairs, vice chairs. And we go with that. So do I get a second on that one?
I second that.
Please vote.
So keep it the way it is.
So
until
now,
July.
now we get to discuss this.
Yes.
Yes.
Right, and so
Sure,
first,
how we do.
to cue that up, what's gonna happen, what are the scenarios that would happen in July as a group?
So in July, so if you look at the deadline of whose end terms, it's myself and Vice Chair Johnson. And if we are not gonna get reappointed or don't choose to be reappointed, then they will reappoint new commissioners here, and then you will have, in July, you will have a fresh vote for chair and vice chair, instead of doing it twice. A possibility of twice. So right now, we're just gonna keep it as it is for the next 3, 4, 5 months. Just because it's been so much commotion between staff and everything else and changes.
So you're.
I will be the chair, everything stays as it is.
Right, I understand that.
Right.
But in July,
You have to
what
read.
happens?
Actually,
Decide.
let's maybe walk through this, because as the staff report says, typically you serve for a 1-year term. So if I understand your motion correctly, you're gonna change that to a term of less than 1 year. So I think, to be clear, I was heard at one point it was to July 1st, but I think you should have a specific term or an ending point. If you don't want to go for a full year, which you can do, you can go a full year or a partial year, but I think you have to be very clear in your motion of what that was, and if it wasn't clear, you have to have a date so that we know when to come back with an item. Does that sound fair?
Right, so he's also making the comment that I could stay as a chair for another year if I get voted in. My motion was to stay until July, is it July 1st?
Well, it would be the July meeting,
The
and
July
then we would
meeting.
re-vote
So
at July
we can
meeting.
have this discussion, we can do it for another year and not change anything for another year, or we can, well,
Well,
it doesn't depend.
I think he said we had to have a date certain on when we're gonna make the next decision, which would be the June meeting.
But by default, it would be a year term, so if it's a year term, we don't have any discussion, but if it's not gonna be a year term, you're kind of throwing in a new wrinkle to it, and I think that to clarify it, I think you should have a date certain. If you don't go for a year, that's the traditional way to do it, is a year.
Well, but we're not changing anything, so they're already in place. So it's extending, it's not a new 1-year term, it's extending the current term until
Right.
June of this year.
Is that possible?
Of course, we
If
could.
that's,
Yeah,
if
so I don't
that's the
wanna beat
motion,
this
well,
dead horse
Well, it's
to
a
death,
tradition to
but-
do a full year.
no, actually, I think it's a year term, and that's been terminated. I think the
Well,
easiest way to do it is
the
to
year term
say.
ended in November.
Yes,
Right.
that's what I'm saying, so
Okay,
you,
so we're already in February.
yeah, we
so
should have
we're-
extended it in
we're-
November, and we didn't, so it's,
Exactly. So we're in February. If we want to extend the term until June, when we have to make a decision, then we extend the term till June. There's not, you don't have to do a year term, because then you're gonna mess everything up, but, so.
So you want to get it back on track to a year
We'll get-
on July?
Right.
On June, in June, at the June meeting,
Okay.
we make a decision, okay, as to,
Then we start the year from
and then we
there,
start the year from
July.
there, and that way we have
Yeah.
certainty of where everybody is in June, one way or another, and then we
We're
start.
back in sync.
We're back in sync.
If-
Yeah.
And
if-
it's
if
very,
I-
it's very
yeah.
clean, to
If
your
we can
point.
keep the staff.
That's good. If that's a friendly amendment, if you can clarify that, it would make for a easier minutes.
Question though, when is the application process for the upcoming, I know it's not gonna, like, when do we do the process for the next appointees?
It should be starting in any month now,
Okay,
because it's usually a 2 or 3 month process,
okay.
so.
So again, okay, do I have to restate the motion?
So I would clear the words, extend the current
I
term.
will-
Okay,
until
so,
June.
but my original question has not been answered, so, right? I mean, we've talked all around this. So, we get to July, I would think, I'm guessing that, our chair would be reappointed. I would just guess, unless you are saying now, I would never do this ever again, you know, or something like that. Okay, so in that scenario where you get reappointed, what happens? Does anything happen in July under that scenario?
The way I see it, if both of us get reappointed, Vice Chair Johnson will be chair. Whoever else is gonna be nominated as a vice chair and accepts it will be a vice chair, and I will take, just like Commissioner Hunter did, I would take a different seat. I would not be
Okay,
the
so is that part of the
Unless-
motion?
Well, right
No.
now, no, I don't think you can go ahead and you cannot talk about the next. What you're talking about right now
Okay,
is,
but-
to answer your
To answer
question,
your
my
question.
understanding is, we will have an item come June, and on the June agenda, there will be an elect a chair and a vice chair for the next year.
Okay.
So we
Yeah,
reset.
So I think, I wouldn't talk too much
Reset
about who
everything.
that would be or what that scenario is, other than this is a term certain, that you're extending the term through the July, or through the
The
June
June meeting.
meeting, so that the July meeting would be the new chair.
Okay, and the significance of July simply is what?
That's when the
These two
terms
have to
get,
give you-
Their terms, not.
everybody's terms comes up in July.
Got it.
It's-
Now, Doug, just to clarify, will the new, if there are new appointees to the commission, will they be known by June?
It should be.
It should be.
Okay.
Right, now, but now that there's also a term of chair, and that normal term, did you say that that is actually November to November?
It's typically 1 year, but we've had some changes in staff and a couple of priorities overtook that. So it's typically a year on the year, you know, and we've changed.
It might be in their rules and regulations.
We voted.
And is it-
But
does
it's something
this
they
change
can
that
decide.
landscape
It's
at
not
all?
tight and
Yeah, I
stuff.
think that cleans it up to go to July. I
Okay,
think
except
that'll make it
the
very
next
clean.
person does it is shorted a few months.
No, 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 no. We're now gonna.
July to July.
Not gonna be
July to July, so you start
July to
So
July.
you're changing now the term of the chair.
which-
No,
which
it's
is
always been a
nice
year.
fiscal year,
Right.
Yeah.
the city fiscal year and everything.
Okay,
so
I'm
it's
just
really
asking a
clean.
question, that's all.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Okay, so are we ready to vote
Well, no, let's restate it, just to be sure.
restate the
Okay.
motion
Yeah, it's
to
restated.
extend
Good work.
the chair and vice chair's term through June, as it is. June first?
No,
Is that
not
Monday?
June 1st, June
Is
30th.
the first meeting June
June
1st?
30th.
Until the next meeting.
No,
June-
yeah, it's
June
June
30th.
She already-
30th.
she
already looked at the date. Yeah.
Right, right, but
Okay.
we will vote on June 1st for what happens in July, but they have to stay in place until July when we get the new peoples.
Right.
So we'll do our voting in June, but their current term will be good through June 30th.
Do we have to be that specific in the motion?
The motion is that
Extend the term.
extend this till June, which directs us to come back in June with an item on June 1st. We will have elected new chair and vice chair.
Yes.
Actually, to clarify, it would be to extend the term to July. And we'll, you don't have to make this part of your motion. We will bring the item back to you in June. Okay.
But you can't extend it to July because they may not be here in July. So it
What-
has to be till the end of June.
Until the end of
Well,
June.
here it says 7:20. I'm here until 7:20.
You're
And-
gone 7/20.
But we're still bringing the item back in June.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
But you
Right.
can't extend their term until July because they may not be here in
So
July.
term end
Yeah.
of the
So the
30th of
Ju-
July or the 1st?
No, the term ends 30
Yes,
of
please.
June.
Yeah, it'd be the end of the month,
Okay,
so.
yeah, okay, that's fine.
Okay. And I had a
Sorry, I'm a geek and
second.
anal about this.
Miss Vice Chair Johnson seconded. Can we vote?
Yes.
Ready to vote?
Yes.
I just want more stability. I wasn't trying to make this, I was trying to, so we can flow through for a few more months until we get more stable. Please note that it passed 6-1 with Commissioner Fowler abstaining.